stop me anywhere I'm going wrong, okay?
Yes.
So she has a bachelor's in science from St. Stephen's College, Delhi University, and a master's in education. She is a trained instructional designer and content writer, having created training modules and trained in-person corporate employees and teachers. She has an experience of over 12 years of working with some of the well-known CBSE, Cambridge, and IB PYP schools like Step by Step School, Pathway School, and the RD School. She has undergone various IB and Cambridge workshops and has built her own repertoire of practices for teaching and learning. She has also undergone various other training modules and is continuously upskilling herself in different pedagogies. She is also, oh, this is interesting, she's a certified National Geographic Educator. We'd like to know what that is all about. She conducts regular webinars and workshops for teachers across all schools to share best philosophies for effective student learning and teacher well-being. And she strongly believes in inquiry-based learning strategies. Her constant endeavor is to make learning meaningful and support innovation and connection amongst educators. Yeah, that is nice. That's interesting, Sonia. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm just going to, you take the stage. It's all yours. And we are eagerly waiting of what's going to unfold today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anuja. That was nice of you to say such nice words. Yes, I'm an extremely passionate educator, and I believe in the fact that it's very easy for all of us to sit and crib and complain about our, education system. But I think what we as educators need to do is we need to bring that change. So we are the ones who, with all these constant endeavor of reaching out to each other through, thanks to THT and various other organizations, where we can all share, learn, and collaborate together. So my main purpose for doing all these workshops and webinars are not just the fact that I share what I know with you, but it's also in return, I learn a lot from you. So it's going to be an interactive session. It's going to be a session where each and every one of you is going to be participating in it. It's designed in such a way that I'll be exposing you to a few apps and how you can actually use them in real life. So you would also be able to immediately from maybe Monday itself actually bring about that change in your classroom scenario and start doing that. So without any further talks, I'm going to share my screen. So I hope it's visible.
Yes. Okay. Yes, it's.
So the topic for today is making learning and thinking visible. So what we are going to be doing in this is that the first thing I would like to know from all of you is if you have ever used visible thinking routines anywhere. You can give me a thumbs up in case if you have. I'm just trying to take a quick check on where everyone is. Okay, I know in the chat there is one yes. The others I don't see too many thumbs up. So I guess it is something different that I'm going to be doing. Okay, few of them have said yes. Fantastic. So I'm excited about that. Great. So this is going to be an interesting session. So I know Anuja has almost said everything about me. So on a personal front, I have, we are a family of 3 and I have a grown-up son. He's doing his law in UK. And it was during his education that I suddenly realized that how every child is different, because he was completely different from the way I learned. And that is what encouraged me to actually get into a training sessions and create my own repertoire of different pedagogies. This is how you can remain in touch with me. If you want, you can take a snapshot of this. That's my Twitter handle, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. Everywhere, if you notice, the common factor will be the number 13. I have always been asked about the fact why the number 13. Very simple. My name is a very common name. Anywhere I tried to create an account, it said already in use. So I added my birth date to it. So no rocket science actually behind that. So that's the session today. We are going to be doing the what, which means we'll be explaining what visible thinking is. The why, justify the importance of using this. The how, that the various ways and the strategies that are going to be used in this. And the who, that how you can possibly use it in your own domain. So these are the 4 pointers that we are going to be working on. So very quickly, a connect. I would like if you can all very quickly rename yourself to your name and your favorite movie after that. Anuja, do you think they'll be able to rename?
Yeah, you want them to write it in the chat box?
No. Just
Sorry.
on your video itself, on your, yeah, the rename option is on, so you can easily do that. If you click on the 3 dots on top.
Okay, for the, okay, individually, all right.
It's nice to see how people actually connect themselves to various other entertainment things. The purpose behind this, I'll just let you know once you've all done this.
Ma'am, where we have to write it?
Oh, what did you say again, Sonia? What do we have to do? The name and the film?
And the movie name that describes you or your favorite movie.
But where is it written? Where to be written?
You have to rename your files. Where you have to mute.
Okay, done.
And 3 dots.
I don't know. Okay, if everyone's not, probably we can,
Okay, you can put
let
it
them know again. Yeah.
Okay, or I'll just tell you basically the idea that
participants. Click on participants and you'll get the small arrow. You have to click there, you'll get rename.
Thank you, Anuradha.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just tell you what the focus was behind this is that whenever you do any kind of an engagement and you allow participants with half-baked questions, the reasoning never comes out clear. So it's the same thing like for us, when we tell our students, we'll show them something, we'll show them a video, we'll show them a picture, we'll make them hear something, and we don't have very clear-cut expectations of our answers. So I just randomly asked you, just put a name of a movie there. I'm sure it got all of you wondering, the movie name, why, for what purpose? Somebody would have thought, can I put a song? Can I put something else? So similarly, that's the thoughts that come into our children's minds also. So we need to be very, very clear and mindful of the fact, what is our expectation? What are we wanting from our children? So keep that very clear. The same thing if I had said that I would like to know if you relate to a particular movie and how you would have immediately understood the thing. So that was the main focus behind this. It was just to get you a little intrigued about the fact that why do we need to know about somebody else's thinking? So once again, I'm going to share my screen. If you all have your mobile phones with you, if you can go to the website, which is joinpd.com. I don't know whether any one of you has worked with Pear Deck. We'll be working on Pear Deck right now. So if you go to joinpd.com, it's going to ask you for a code. This is the code, DEMMTZ. If you can all log in.
So we had a peer deck session as well, THT had conducted. So I'm hoping we'll have a lot of people doing it as well.
So I can see 3 students have connected.
Ma'am, code, enter code.
Yeah, it's written here, DEMMTZ. Yeah. So even if you don't do it right now, that's also fine. The moment we'll be using the Pear Deck, you can that time also visit joinpd.com and the code will always be visible on my screen. So if you see, the code would always remain on my screen on the right hand side. That's the, let me just make it full screen so that it becomes a little better for everyone. Yeah. Okay, so this is a famous quote by Ron Richard. He had written a book, Making Thinking Visible. He's one of those famous people who believes very strongly in making thinking visible. And if you ever get a chance to do a workshop with him or maybe read his book, I would suggest that you must do it. It changes your outlook completely. So what he said was that most of all, have confidence in every learner's ability to think and your capacity to nurture that thinking. The results will amaze you and energize you. So every child of ours has the ability to think. What we need to do is we need to have that particular capacity to nurture that thinking. And that's the thinking that can be nurtured through these visible thinking routines. How? Let's do this. So if you have joined on Peer Deck, if you see the same screen there, on your right hand side in green, it will show you a tab which says show answer. So just click on that. When you look at this particular picture, what are your thoughts? I'm not giving you any other question. All that I'm saying is when you look at this picture, what are your thoughts? If you can enter through that Peer Deck. So if you've entered on your mobile, if you look at the mobile screen, it will show you this, and on your right hand side, it will show you show answer. Can you see that? So these are the answers that I'm getting. So fantastic. If you see, that means everyone has actually written something different. Some of the common answers are about the aeroplane or meteorite or flying a kite. These are some of the common ones that you see. To be honest, this is not what I expected. All that I was seeing was there is a kind of a plane that has gone and they're just looking there and the father is showing them. But then you guys are not wrong because I never gave any specifications. The same picture, if I put in a specific strategy, which is called see, think, and wonder, where I add these questions. What is it that you see? Automatically, the answers that would have come is a boy seeming a little shocked, a father pointing towards the sky. What thoughts or ideas come to your mind? These were your ideas. You could have put in anything. And then what questions do you have? Because the questions that come up from students are the ones that help us take our learning forward. So that is how the see, think, wonder strategy would have changed the outlook of this picture completely as compared to if I just show it and I say, okay, what is it that is there? Give your thoughts. So very often in our classrooms, we do these things that, okay, let's have a discussion on this. But the discussion pointers, we never specify. We always ask children, okay, why don't you brainstorm on these few points? But then how? What? What are the questions? Those are the things which are important. And for that purpose is what we use visible thinking routines. Do you all agree with me or you don't agree with me? On your Peer Deck, on your cell phone, you will find a blue little dot. If you agree, please move that dot to the thumbs up. If you don't agree with me, put it on the red one. It's absolutely okay if you don't agree with me, because during the session, I will try my best to make you see what I'm trying to say. So if you can just start moving the blue. Wow. So I have a few people who are like bang on, few people who are like, okay, I think we are very close to agreeing, but we would like to have a few more examples. So fantastic. Again, the idea behind this was that anytime you put forward a question and you want your students to agree or disagree with you, use your Peer Deck because your children start getting involved. Their thoughts is something what you start gathering. Like I've got to know most of you agree with it. It's just that I would like to give you now, how do we work on ahead with it? So this is the book that I talk about, and making thinking visible for people who've already used it would already know. This is a project that was started by Harvard Project Zero. It was started under the name Harvard's Project Zero. If you go to the website Harvard's Project Zero, you will find all the details in that. It's aimed at developing the students' thinking dispositions. How do our children actually think? What is their way of understanding and deepening their thoughts and accepting their different viewpoints? Because your children could be thinking way differently at times than what your expectation is. So, in case if they are thinking differently, there is nothing wrong with it. Just get them to reason it out. That's the main aspect that you have. So this is the book, Making Thinking Visible. This has been picked up from there. It's been written by Ron Richard. Now, once we've understood what visible thinking routines is, let's come to the why of it. It's a short video which I'm going to share with you.
Educators do to help students become better thinkers. One might assume that a good place to start is to teach thinking skills. But is teaching skills enough? We often miss opportunities to use the skills we have simply by not noticing times when they might be useful. Good thinkers not only know how to think creatively, critically, and deeply, they actually do it. They have a repertoire of thinking moves to draw on. They're inclined to use them, and they're sensitive to the times when thinking would be helpful. In other words, they're in the habit of observing, analyzing, and questioning. So can we teach this? Researcher educators at Project Zero have been exploring this question for many years and think the answer is yes. The thinking routines they have developed as part of their research invite learners of any age to be close observers, to organize their ideas, to reason carefully, and to reflect on how they're making sense of things. These routines are flexible enough to be used to engage learners with any artifact, system, or concept, including their own thought processes. Thinking routines are simple structures, for example, a set of questions or a short sequence of steps that can be used alone or with a group. They are designed to be easy to remember, practical, and to invite a broad range of thinking moves. They are well suited to leverage the power of collaborative thinking and transfer easily to any context. You can use them without training or prior experience, figuring out how they work along with your students just by using them. Thinking routines help students go beyond the superficial, inviting them to dig deeper by making the complex accessible. Through practice, learners become sensitive to opportunities to use their thinking moves in the wild, helping them to develop habits of mind that will sustain their curiosity inside and outside the classroom. Given the broad range of thinking routines available, it might be tempting to try out as many routines as possible. But this approach can turn them into mere strategies, subverting a core aspect of their design that they get used over and over again. Choosing one core thinking routine, for instance, see, think, wonder, and trying it out in as many contexts as possible is more likely to reveal the ways thinking routines can support individuals in developing habits of thinking and groups in developing a culture of thinking together. Once you and your students get comfortable with the idea of using a routine for structuring your thinking, it's easier to branch out and find routines that fit well with the kind of thinking you'd like to invite. For instance, asking deep questions, making connections, coming up with explanations, challenging those explanations, and exploring alternative perspectives. Thinking routines might at first seem too simple, but it is their simplicity that makes them easy to remember and to use. Rather than simplifying ideas, thinking routines offer straightforward ways to sustain learners in their inquiry into complex problem spaces. While it does take time, using thinking routines in your classroom cultivates a community of thinkers with a culture of thinking, supporting learners in becoming intentional in their shared pursuit of deep understanding.
Yes. So any thoughts on this? Does it convey as to the benefits that you can have with visible thinking routine? If you want to put them down, can we all just go to menti.com? Do you know the website menti.com? So if you just visit, at times you can unmute and just say yes or no, because I just don't get to know. I don't see everyone.
Hi, can I come in?
Yeah, please.
Yes, I'm Jasmine, and yeah, I totally agree with what you've shown. And we as educators, the moment we had, kind of explored these different routines, everybody was curious to try out many. But what it actually means is till we don't set using one specific routine, it generally becomes very confusing for the children as well as for the educators as to what exactly are we trying to achieve by these routines. So I think you've really nailed it there by showing that, we really need to get into the routine and establish it as a part of the classroom culture. So yeah, thanks, Sonia.
So that I think is really, really important. So in case if anyone would like to add into the advantages of visible thinking routines, you can go to menti.com. Just add out that code which is visible on the screen, 2165753. So mentimeter.com is also the app. I'm sure all of you are using this. Just in case if you are trying to use any of the visible thinking routines as well in your classroom, you can even get your children to respond back to you using this particular app. So the reason why I picked up specifically these apps for all of you to engage with is because your visible thinking routines, if you want responses from your children, immediately they can come through these apps. They're very easy. And of course, there are a whole lot of other apps as well, but these are something which are very easy even for a child to be working on. So somewhere what I think about the biggest benefit which I have seen over the years that I've been using it with my students in school, and I've got all my teachers now using that heavily, is that somewhere it has taken the level of questioning, the level of curiosity of our children to a completely different high. So all of you must be familiar with Bloom's taxonomy. Somewhere where our children always worked around, defining, explaining, describing, identifying, listing, and all of those. Now children with this routine have, because they've got so used to this complete culture, that their thoughts now, as a habit, would automatically go towards critiquing something, justifying something, having a debate over it, trying to justify that, no, this option is correct, that's not. So build a culture of your children to think and not just replicate what is being taught, because content will come in. It's never the fact that the content will not come in, because a child who's able to think and think critically will automatically make connections between the content and the real world. It's very, very important to do that. So yes, very nice. This is another very nice point somebody's mentioned, that you understand the perspective of your students as well. And that is very important. We as teachers, we need to let go. We need to let go from the fact that children also have their own viewpoints. They would like to say something, however right or wrong is fine. As long as they have a solid reasoning for it, why not? And even if they have a wrong reasoning for it, I'm sure through the process, they themselves will realize, oh, I think it's not working out like this. Instead of us telling them that you are wrong. And usually these routines you will always find will have one component which will encourage questioning among your students. Most of them will always have. And questioning is a very, very big component to help your students become independent learners. Because lifelong learners, I can understand. A lot of us can develop the passion for learning and make our children lifelong learners. But what's more important is to make them independent lifelong learners. They will not always have a teacher in every field to guide them and tell them. Eventually, they will have to face the world on their own. They will have to start learning everything on their own. So this is what the whole visible thinking routine is, that what is it, who started it, who's the man behind it, whom should you read to get to know more, and what are the benefits for this. But then now comes the big question as to how. So I will later on towards the end, I will share a link with you, which will give you a complete toolbox. It's a website that gives you a complete toolbox. It gives you all these visible thinking routines that you can think of. And of course, you can put them as your bank and decide on which are the ones that you're going to use when for your age group of children that you have. So this is something which I know for a fact that we can start using right from the age group of nursery, and they can go up till their high school students. There is no limitation. Even at times for corporates, for adult learning, if you see, even for teacher professional development, a lot of times opinions of teachers, their prior knowledge, what is it that they think, the trainers are using visible thinking routines. So there is no age barrier. So anything where people say that no, this can be used only for the older ones and the younger ones can't use it, that's not true. Everyone can use this. You just have to decide to pick up the appropriate one. So these visible thinking routine strategies that they have, they've divided them broadly under these heads. Basically, when you think about core ideas are where you just want your students to observe something and give their viewpoints on this. Giving their viewpoints will automatically get them to have a little curiosity. So ask them to create some questions after that. That's what is the core idea. For very younger children, it's always a good idea to stick towards core ideas if you want to make that culture of thinking in your classroom. Because these are very simple. These are something as simple as, like, if I talk about see, think, wonder, if that's my routine, which I just showed to you also, the little ones don't even need that written text, because see can be something where you can just draw an eye. Think can be something where you can just put a little question mark. And wonder can be somewhere, or think can be somewhere where you can put a little brain, and wonder can be something where you just put a little question mark. Children looking at it will be able to understand what you are trying to say. So core ideas are very good strategies which you can use for your little ones. Not that they can't be used for the older ones, because I can have something as simple as, suppose maybe the Great Australian Migration. I can talk about Great Australian Migration, the gold rush, and just show a picture about that and get my almost middle school students to be thinking about it and actually coming up with facts as to why was this migration there, what prompted it, and what was the effect after this. So you can get and use it anywhere. Digging deeper into ideas are when a particular concept has been introduced and you want your students to delve deeper into it. The names are pretty clear, so I will not at the moment go into detail about these, because within an hour to do the whole thing is slightly difficult. But you will find they're very, very simple. So even something like objects and systems, if you talk about, if it is something like a science and you want to pick up a microscope and you want your children to understand what is microscope, that's an object which you can just show. And there is a routine for it, which is called parts, thoughts, and function. So what do you think are the different parts in this? Why do you think this is going to be used? So children can try that out and put their thoughts together into it. So even for any other teacher who's not in one of these regular subjects, and if you are doing anything to do with art, which is visual art or performing art, even through that, instead of showing a particular art piece, instead of showing Van Gogh and trying to say, okay, let's replicate this, you can show the Van Gogh paintings and you can say, okay, what is it that you notice in them? Automatically, you will find children will start coming up with the elements that I used, that he used curvy lines and all of those things that will start coming. So you're building the thought process of a child instead of you giving them that particular information. So that's how visible thinking routines are divided under these heads. Just to understand, like what Jasmine just asked, which one to use when. Sometimes in your class, it becomes like a huge confusion as to, am I using the right routine? Is it getting the correct output? So you have to make out from these broad heads, is this what you are looking at? If that's your objective, then yes, you can pick up a routine from there. So let's just do 2 routines in detail. Let's talk about core routines and digging deeper. So there is a routine which is called compass points. So I'm just showing you what that routine is about. Because it's compass points, it basically has north, south, east, west. In this, you can have a compass drawn if you want, or the children can just have 4 parts written. How you beautify it, that's completely your choice and your child's choice. But the E is that it stands for what excites you, or what is the upside, what is the good part in this. So the children have to identify the positivity in that aspect. What do you find worrisome? So whenever a particular concept you've introduced, what is it that worries the child about that? What is the downside of it? The negative aspects about that? What else do you need to know so that you will find out in detail this idea? So this is the one, the need aspect, where automatically the questions would start coming in from children. And now when they have questions, that's what drives their learning, because that's the need that develops in them to learn further. Because if the need is not there in the child to learn further, you can try out the best of activities for your children, they will not want to learn. And especially if your students are slightly older ones, they will just switch off because they cannot connect to it. So get that need to come from them. The S stands for basically suggestions or stance, that what is it that you can actually opt out and do in that case. To give it a little more structure, this was just explaining to you what compass point is. Let's look at these 2 examples. So if I look at the first examples, I've tried to pick up 2 varied ones, thinking that, people would be from different backgrounds and different, subject streams and things like that. If you look at the first example, there is a fraction, there is a number in decimal, and there is percentage. So maybe if I show my children something like this, if it was where I was trying to introduce to them the fraction, decimal, and percentage relationship, interdependence between all of them, all 3 of them, if I have compass points there, I can easily ask my children, like a prior knowledge, that what is it that you know about it? What is it that really excites you? So children will automatically say, I've just realized that 0.75, I can just remove the point and make it 75%, or whatever. That's a child's thought, whatever he thinks of, or whatever he knows, he will put it under N. He'll put it under E, because that is what he knows about. Then is worries. Worries could be anything. How come 3/4 has become 0.75? It worries me to find out this kind of a relationship. Will I be able to do these calculations? Your children who find calculations difficult, they can even turn around and say, oh my God, it seems it'll require a lot of calculations and I'm not comfortable with it. Then comes basically your fact, which are suggestions. Suggestions could be anything. I think I will need the help of my teacher in this. I think I will need a peer group to help me in that. And then comes your questions. How is it that I'm going to convert a decimal to a percentage? Are they all equal? If they are equal, how come the numbers are different? The children's questions will drive this complete inequality. And when you have to teach them this concept, you pick up their questions and start finding out the answers for them. And it will give a structure to the whole thought. The same process where you could have just given them the formula, where you could have just given 3/4. Okay, let's put the 3 inside and the 4 outside, and let's divide. 3 is smaller than 4, put a dot and just put a 0. Instead of making it so drab, you've just given it a visual picture completely. A child takes it like a proper step stance to follow it, instead of making it the usual formulas. Similarly, if you look at the second one. So any ideas for the second one? Because this one is slightly easier when you look at it. Anything for compass points, anything in NEWS, if you can contribute. You can just unmute and say out. Anyone?
Yeah, hello Sonia ji. This is Dr. Jaya Parekh.
Yeah.
So, not specifically for a subject, but suppose as a school principal I'm speaking, suppose the school wants the students to brainstorm on the importance of having uniform, or why is uniform essential, or is school uniform essential? Then they can think on all those points.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I think Dr. Jaya, that's great, because anyone who's into this kind of a field, you will see, because it's very easy for children to turn around and say that, okay, we don't want the uniform. but then you are asking them to give suggestions as well. So you give that onus to them, that if you don't want it, give us some alternative, give us a suggestion. What is it that you want? So fantastic, very nice. Anyone else? Either
Sonia ma'am, it is more or less similar to critical thinking and problem solving.
yes. Okay.
Are
So
these routines more or less because the
they
same?
lead to critical thinking and problem solving. So when you want your children to develop that habit of critical thinking, to develop a stance of where they will always be doing problem solving, how do they get into that culture? How do they actually start looking at it? That is why you use these routines.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
the KWL chart can also be an aid.
Yes, it is also one
It's
of
somewhat similar to this, right?
Yes, it's also. So what had happened was that initially when these visible thinking routines had started, they had started with the very simple ones, KWL, and then also your Freyer model, if you know, that was there. Simple thing like mind map, all of these were also used. I'm sure children, if any one of you is a primary school teacher, you would have realized that even the bus stop activity that you used to do in your class, these were all visible thinking routines because you were giving it a slight structure. So what is said is, like, even if you go back to the video that was said, that they are very simple. But the fact is which one to use when. That's what counts. Because usually we get stuck to either see, think, wonder, tear, share, activity. So the very simple ones. Whereas you can take that critical thinking, as you rightly pointed out, to a much higher level by just picking up the correct visible thinking routine. So this is something which will kind of make you think a little. So digging deeper, there is a routine which is called circle of viewpoints. So all that happens is you draw a circle and the circle gets divided into 3 parts. In the first part, what you write is, I am thinking of whatever the topic is from the viewpoint of. Okay, so usually very useful for your language, in case if any one of you is a language teacher, or even from science, even from something from history. Because it can be something where you say, ki, I am thinking of, the event in a particular novel from the viewpoint of a character. So name that character. And then the child describes that I think, and then the child starts describing about that event from that character's point of view and not from the author's point of view. And finally, from the point of view of that particular one character, what is the question that he has? So even if I had something to do with, suppose, as simple as an Indo-Pak migration, that is something which in social studies, if the children were learning about, you can say, I am thinking about Indo-Pak migration from the viewpoint of a migrant who had to migrate from India to Pakistan. So I think, now the child writes his own description, what he thinks he's read either through a story or through a YouTube video that you've shown, and he starts thinking that maybe that migrant, when he was leaving his home and going, he suddenly felt as if everything was lost. Maybe he had actually lost his family there. What were his feelings? What were the risks that he was going to be taking? So he writes all of those. So it is all, besides the language building, it is where you are talking about, in a migration, what are the effects that come? So, the effects that we talk about, effects are there on your economic aspect, on the political aspect, and, the push-pull factors, everything will come under this. And of course, finally, a question. It can be anything. The migrant's point of view, so the migrant can say, why couldn't I have just stayed back? So that is how you can. So on the peer deck, again, if you can think from your subject, whatever subject you all teach, whatever grade you teach, if you can think of a particular concept and use this routine in that. And in case if you find it difficult, you can unmute and you can say out the concept to me, and maybe we can all frame the particular routine together. So your choice.
Miss Sonia?
Yes, please.
This is my name is Jyotsna. I am teaching French. So let's say if we are introducing a grammar topic like adjectives to the students, how do we use this?
Okay. So if you see, this is like a digger deeping. Okay. So you have to dig deep into this. So which means the core routine is done. That means what are adjectives? What are the different the terms which are there? Now, I don't know French, so I will not be able to help you.
Okay. Just to give you an example.
I'll give you an example along with English. So you just keep translating that into French. Okay.
Sure. Thank you.
The word like enormous, the word beautiful, the word pretty, the word bad. So you've given them this vocabulary already. Now what you need to start doing is that they should be able to use it correctly. So maybe you read out a little story to them, which has certain characteristics of these adjectives for maybe that particular character in it. Maybe the character's name is Sonia. Okay, so now you will tell the children from Sonia's point of view, you tell me about adjectives. What kind of girl was Sonia? So maybe from that story, she will pick up. And so the child, suppose Anuja is going to be writing that I am thinking of adjectives from the point of view of Sonia. I think Sonia was beautiful. Sonia was intelligent. I'm not saying any bad word for myself, but then you can write these out. A question I have from this viewpoint is, what if I had to use the word overconfident in French? What do you think the word would have been? So that means you as a teacher have got to know that she needs a word for this. Right? So that's
yes.
So a circle. That's why I said that we need to decide on that routine. What is our purpose? So the purpose for this routine is digging deeper. That means the basic concept has been touched upon by the child. So you've given an idea of that particular concept. And now you want to tell your child to dig deeper. That means somewhere maybe you want your child to develop his vocabulary a little more. So you've given a bank of adjectives, maybe about 10 of them in French. Now you want them to start building their own. So that is where all these questions would start coming. You know,
Okay.
what if Sonia is like this? What is the word that I will use? Somebody else will also come up and say something. So, you know, you will have a whole lot of people who will come up with all these questions. Then you start giving them the French word for those adjectives. That means what you had started with 10 adjectives, with at least another 10 coming in, now children have 20 of them.
Okay.
That's how you can use.
Okay. But I have used this digging deeper strategy as an exit slip in my class.
So digging deeper has a whole lot of them. I just picked up circle of viewpoints.
Okay. Okay.
So a few of them. I'll show you that website also towards the end. So you'll find there are a whole lot of them.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is one I think somebody's written. Thirsty crow, and you would have done you were in the crow's place. Yes, fantastic. So that's a good one that you've come up with. Circle of viewpoints is slightly difficult. I agree with you. Okay, so let's think of another one. These are simple as the name suggests. So there is think, feel, and care. Anything to do with that little caring aspect. You know, something like the climate change now. Something like the plants, the animals, the habitats, the natural resources. Anything to do with relationships. You can think, feel, and care. What is it that you think? What is it that you feel? And how do you think you will care? So if it is for plants, maybe you can show a little video of trees being cut and ask your children to do this. So maybe your children, because I got an example of primary, so I'm just picking up for primary and saying this, your children maybe will say this, that I think trees are being cut for building houses. And I feel that soon the birds will have no nests. And I care. I think we all should start putting water pots outside for these birds. Anything. So this was like a rough example that I've come up with. Similarly, you can also have connect, extend, and challenge. This is again a routine where a child has some information. You are making connections to what he already knows. So it is, if children already know the different body organs in our system, and then you are trying to teach them, suppose, digestive system. So you can talk about that if I am eating a chocolate, and it goes in, what do you think is happening to my chocolate? Can you make a connection to what you already know? So what happens is children immediately make a connection that I think we chew with our teeth, and then the saliva wets it, and then it goes through my food pipe, and then it will go to the stomach. And then finally the extra one is excreted out. Because if that is how much they know, that's the only thing about the digestive system that they can make a connection with. You stop there, and then you can show them a little video, read a story, or read out a chapter or whatever. And now you tell them, what is the new information? That means, how has your learning got extended now? Can you let me know? So connect is something, what was their prior knowledge. Extension is what they have learned now. You will find that the children will automatically add, oh, after stomach, there is also intestines. These intestines will finally digest and give out the waste out. So, whatever the new things have come in, they will write and extend. Challenge is where you open it out to them and you ask them that, are there still any questions that you want to ask? So maybe a child asks a simple question, why does my mom always tell me that you have to have milk? How is the milk going to help my bones? I haven't understood, because nowhere has my bones come in. So that means that's a point where now you have to start taking your learning next. You have to make a connection between your digestive system and the nutrients going into the blood and the blood going into your bones, so that they understand that, yes, that's how my bones become strong when my mom tells me to drink. So that's how connect, extend, challenge. It takes your thinking way deeper. And automatically what you mentioned about critical thinking, that's what happens. Headline is a very good strategy, something like an exit ticket, where you have, things like you've read a complete text, whether on any subject. It can be on history, it can be on anything. It can be some basic civilization you've read, or maybe in civics you've done some government system. And finally you tell them that you just have to put the main point as a headline. That's it. So if, suppose my children were exploring about democracy as a government system and I had to create a headline for it, the children were supposed to summarize the most important part that they learned about democracy. And you will find every child will come up with the most important thing. So it can be something by the people, for the people, of the people, or whatever else. So that is how it is done. How you can use this is, because we'll run short of time, so I will not go to the Padlet. I'll just show it to you. You can create a Padlet for your students. And you can tell your students to actually start adding in. So various things can start getting added into it. Right? So because I know we are in a virtual environment, and in the virtual scenario, to get responses from students is an effort. They don't want to unmute and give out the answer. So it's always a good idea to put it in your apps like these, because it gives them that freedom to just write it out. So use these apps for them. So nice. I like the way everyone is writing. So great. Would any one of you like to share one complete process? So this is like a little reflection. Think of a learning objective and tell me the purpose and tell me a visible thinking routine. Can you do that? Anyone? Anyone who's used a visible thinking routine ever?
So can I come in?
Yeah, please.
So I'm talking specifically from the pre-primary point of view, because I'm the coordinator there.
Yeah.
I just wanted to share something that we had done with the children after doing a story.
Yeah.
So basically what we did was that we did a story with them, and because there was a lot of talking about the values, we did a tug of war with the children, where we asked them, whether they think that from the protagonist point of view, was it a correct thing to do, or from the antagonist point of view, was it a correct thing to do. So we had a good time to, understand how the children think from that perspective.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So
tug of war, same thing what you've done with the little ones. I can give you an example that, maybe grade 4 and 5, in case when you introduce them to persuasive writing, that's again a fact where tug of war can again come in. Similarly, for middle school also, anywhere where you are getting into real debates, you can again bring in tug of war. So a same routine actually can be used at any age level. That is what is the beauty of using visible thinking routines. So this is the website that I was talking about. I'll just share the link in the chat for everyone. This is the Project Zero. This is the toolbox. So, core thinking routines, there are a whole lot of them which you can click. If you click on any one of them, they open out to another page. I'll just click on one and I'll just show it to you. So suppose if I've clicked on I used to think, and it gives you what this is about. So if you scroll down, it says resource links. Click on that and it tells you where you can use it, how you can use it. What is the purpose behind this application and how you can use this. So they are really in detail. So it's a good idea sometimes that if you are a school which has multiple sections, it's a good idea if you can actually divide among yourself that, okay, fine, I take care of the core routines. Why don't you look at digging deeper? And somebody else can look about introducing and exploring new ideas. So there are a whole lot of them if you see. Of course, there are certain routines which will be repeated. They can be your core routines. They can also be your introducing and exploring ideas. They can also be something for bringing out the different possibilities. So there will be repetition of quite a few, but they are extremely good. Like there is one which is Step Inside, where it talks about perspective talking. So usually Step Inside is something where you will think from a language perspective to step inside a particular character's role. My teachers just did it about, they were supposed to learn about the earth and earth's structure and how it is changing over a period of time. And they did a video, and within that video, they had used Edpuzzle to stop in. That, okay, if this was the time and you stepped in, what would you see? And then a few centuries later, if you stepped into the earth, this is what is visible. So what would you feel? And then the next, and then the next. So they came up with the fact that what earth was and what have we done to it today. So you can take it in any direction.
Sonia ma'am, can I share my experience here for Step In?
Yes.
I'm a pre-primary teacher. So I also applied this visible thinking routine Step in story.
Yeah.
So I narrated the story, the old lady and the pumpkin. And at the end, then I asked children, if you were the old lady and you had to go back to your own house, so, and if you meet the lion and the tiger and all the animals, what would you do? So they came up with such great ideas that you would never think of. Children can think so much.
True. I completely understand that and I agree to that. Because somewhere I feel, because when you give them that freedom, I think children come up with amazing ideas. Most of the time, why they are scared to say out the idea, you brought it up so beautifully, which is actually my next slide. If you read this, it says so much. Should we put down what we think is right or what we think you think is right? There are so many times children don't voice themselves because of the fear of being wrong, because they think that you are expecting something else from them. So give them that freedom. The moment you give them that freedom, you will find that their thinking takes a huge leap, and our children think so much better than what we were at their age. Trust me, we were the ones where we had a question, we were supposed to write the answer. From the question, we would put a bracket and pick up a certain part of it, start my answer from there and say because, and then just end the question. Now gone are those times. Children will not pick up anything from the question. They want that freedom. So they just want a broad structure and for them to put their thought ahead. And that is what matters. So any questions? I know it was like a quick, too many things in 1 hour, but I tried to bring in at least the most important aspect that was required, and more importantly, to convince you on using visible thinking routines.